Hello everyone, Canon Louie here, getting to Path of Exile's new Archnemesis League. Now, I had been busy on doing other game-related stuff, so I didn't get to participating in Archnemesis League until recently. So, it has been a little bit later. So, this league has quite a bit of big changes, and going into this map, once I find one of those league mechanic thingies. So, in Archnemesis, you get these drops from random monsters that give you a guaranteed item when placed in one of these things. So there's like something, whatever you want to call that, chaining a rare monster. And you can apply a certain effect to that monster in order to get a set type of reward. So for an example, this one gives unique items, I think, weapons, and other things. And I think, depending on which one it is, it also has a higher chance of potentially, like this lightning one or the fire one, I think it has a higher chance of having fire mods, unless that's just the monster effect. I'm not quite sure. I haven't, tested everything extensively since I was focusing on leveling my character. And I have to say, since I'm not playing traps this time, and actually playing a somewhat tanky character in following a build guide on a staff tectonic slam chieftain, it has been a lot more fun, let me tell you. Playing traps or mines or any kind of really clunky type of gameplay is well, I mean, it works, but it's not really fun for me. So I'm glad that I switched that up. So going into one of these, I have to say that the currency one is potentially the most overpowered one, and the reason why that is because in this map you will have plenty of rare monsters that you can apply these mods to, and the first mod that you put on is you have up to 4 rares that you can put mods on. If you put currency as your first one, every single one afterward will have a currency drop, and I just find that to be kind of crazy, to be honest. But yeah, let's start with the currency one as soon as I get my endurance charges back. And there we go. So yeah, and also there are different recipes and to give you even stronger ones. So let's see, which key is it? There's a certain key to open the menu, but I don't remember what it is. So let's just go to this one. Get rid of these guys right here. This AoE is so good. So now that we killed the currency one, that is locked in, and I can't add any more currency ones. But if I add, let's just say this one, now the reward will be currency, skill gems, and random items, and that is how the currency one, in my opinion, is potentially one of the more powerful ones. But if you have certain combinations, you can actually have a more powerful one. So I don't remember exactly how they combine, but like it'll drop from one of the rares that it was. As soon as you finish one of these recipes, it will have, for an example, like maybe fossils and currency, or like potentially like random items plus whatever it is, and so on. And even maps. Wow. Let's give that one a shot. And for some reason he didn't even drop maps. Nice. But that's pretty much the gist of it, where you get those items and then you combine them together to get a set of specific rewards, which is pretty nice. It's not like super complicated like, what was it, Heist was, and so on, where you don't have to like level anything and whatnot. So it's a really nice, simple League mechanic that I can get behind, and also the modifiers that you put into the rare monster will stack. So when you put in all 4 of them, the rare can be quite powerful. So keep that in mind. So going over probably the biggest change, because the League mechanic is, like I said, fairly simple this time around, but there has been massive changes to the Atlas and also Atlas progression. So as you can see here, they completely removed the regions of the Atlas. So before you had 4 corners and then some regions in the middle. So yeah, I think there was like 8 total. And then if you farmed the conquerors enough, you could get all of your maps to max tier of tier 16, or tier 13 through 16 or something like that. So this time around, you have to face the Maven more regularly, having those encounters, as well as some sort of side bosses. And I have not fought them myself, so I can't really say like how good the boss fights are or anything like that. But if you face off against the other bosses other than Maven, they drop something that increases the level of your Atlas maps. Something along those lines. But the most important thing is, look at this. So instead of dealing with the Maven in order to gain those Atlas passives for each region, in order to fine-tune the type of content that you want to do for the Atlas, they completely remove that with removing the regions and adding in an entire Atlas skill tree. And the nice thing about this is that, as far as I know, this affects all the maps. So no longer do you need to farm specific maps in order to gain the type of content with those passives that you want to do. So for an example, for delving, before there was like 2 really good regions for delving. Well, now it affects all of the maps. And with how they did this, it honestly looks really amazing. Just from what I've briefly looked at, they pretty much put all the regions together and just made this skill tree to give you more freedom on what content you want to specialize in. So I decided to do delving once again, and they even added more clusters for stuff like shrines. I mean, shrines, as far as I know, wasn't on any of the regions, but this time around you can increase the duration of shrines that you find. You can make it so that every map guarantees to have 1 shrine in it, and also it has the old Atlas progression nodes, like such as this delve one, which gives you sulfite per completion, but it affects all the maps, and I just love that. So how it works is that instead of having like a chance of dropping a higher tier map for every map you do. Instead, you gain 1 Atlas passive point every time you do the bonus objective. So instead of having the additional chance to drop higher tier maps or whatever, that is just built into map specific clusters or even the traveling nodes. So that isn't as big of a deal. And this one, for an example, 15% chance to drop 1 tier higher, and then the other map cluster doing the same, and then they have these map clusters as well. So I find that these map clusters are kind of pretty easy to get, like around whichever content you want to do. You're probably going to get these, or the vast majority of them, so you're kind of getting like the same effect as if you were progressing through the Atlas how it was before. So this is by far the most exciting change to me on just having more player freedom than probably ever before on fine-tuning which extra content you want to do. But there is one important thing that I do want to mention, is that even though that I put all of these points into the delving nodes, I haven't really been having too much delving encounters. Like, I mean, this map I have Expedition, and I've been getting Expedition quite frequently, as well as Blight for some reason. So, I mean, granted, the Sulfite, the delving ones don't, like, increase the chance of getting Nico, or at least not really. So that's probably a big factor. But I just find that something to point out. And then the other thing, too, is that I've had certain maps, while progressing on this, I've had some maps that had, like, 3 or 4 different types of these extra contents. Like, I had, like, Expedition, Incursion, Blight, and then, like, possibly even regions, like, all, or, breaches, like, all in one map, and it was very clustered, so I'm not really sure how to change that, but having that many different things all in one map is kind of a bit much. It's kind of on edge of being too much. So I do think that's worth pointing out, that you can potentially get so many different types of things, and it seems to be somewhat overwhelming. Now, if you want more stuff to do, like, in that sense, well, then that can be a positive. So, yeah. So on this Atlas, they pretty much have, like, everything from Metamorph, Delirium, Beyond, Harvest, and everything. And then the shrines, and then specific map nodes. They even have at the very top, at the end of the skill tree, giving you nodes to increase your chances of getting the special Elder and Shaper maps. And also, you don't have to fight the Conquerors all the time anymore. So, pretty much, for this, I'm guessing, like, this goes all the way to tier 10, so and I don't have the top of it, so I'm guessing you're not even really forced to upgrade all your maps if you don't want to. So that kind of goes back to before the Conquerors, where you're not forced to constantly do those Conqueror boss fights in order to progress. And, well, I did enjoy the Conqueror's boss fights, because I found them to be probably the most balanced boss fights in terms of what you need to do. Like, it felt like if I got hit by them, it was mostly my fault, rather than some of these other map bosses. It just seems like, especially with the different map mods, it's like impossible to dodge their attacks, so you just have to endure them. But this time around, it doesn't look like you need to do any at all if you really don't want to do those. So, it is what it is. I mean, I haven't fought those bosses yet, so I can't know how annoying or how trivial they are. But at the same time, though, I do like the idea of not being forced to deal with them all the time, a specific boss all the time. Although I kind of got used to that progression. So if the conquerors were still in the game, I wouldn't mind it. It's just, especially at the start, it just felt like it was somewhat tedious, and then I just kind of got used to it. So it wasn't really tedious anymore. So this time around, I really do like the changes overall that they have made, and for balance changes anyway that they do every league, they really focused on buffing self-casting spells, and then they nerfed the unleash support, the repeating spell gem, so it really made it so that your damage went way up if you self-casted, but if you did unleash support and stuff, your damage pretty much stayed the same. So I found that to be pretty interesting, and since I'm not playing a spellcaster, I have no idea how good or bad those changes were. It kind of sounded like if you did the traditional self-casting, you're going to be more powerful than potentially you ever were, or at the very least you're probably at the same power level before they nerfed damage across the board. So that is fairly interesting. And one last thing that I'll leave off here is that it is worth noting as well, for the maps, they added more map mods. You can now get mods that reduce the effect of your auras, which is probably in indirect map to counter aura bots pretty much, as well as various different ones that even decrease your buff duration, I have heard from my friend Warmonger. So as far as I know, from the ones that I have experienced, there are even some that do impale, they aren't really, they make the map harder, but at the same time though, for me personally, they don't break any map. It's not like no regen or reflect maps, whereas unless I have a character that just completely ignores the mechanic altogether, these new mechanics seem to make the map harder without bricking a map and forcing me to re-roll it, which I really like. I mean, in my opinion, that's basically what map mods should be, is make the map harder, not just have a specific mechanic that you have to somehow ignore or avoid in order to play the map at all. So for no regen, you need to have leech or rely on your flasks, etc., etc. So these new map mods, I think, are definitely in the right direction, although they can be annoying to deal with, but I would take them over no regen and reflect maps any day. So with that, Archnemesis is definitely big thumbs up from me. And partly because I'm playing a more enjoyable character to play, but also I've just been having a blast with this league, and it's probably most likely because I'm actually following a build guide this time, so I'm not screwing around trying to make my own build, although that's more fun. My character is always being half-baked, either dealing good damage but not being able to take a hit, and so on and so on. So getting back into the swing of Path of Exile, this has definitely been a joy to go back into Path of Exile. So, and I'm glad that I'm finally taking the time to review this, but I did want to at least fight one of those aforementioned bosses, but I haven't gotten to them, and I don't know when they start showing up. So this is where I'll leave it. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you're enjoying the league as well, and have a wonderful day.